Hey guys, welcome back to a new video from trainingride.com. Today we'll be talking about what are the different things which we need to know if we need to sound or we need to be a good software engineer. Then what basically are the different things which we need to know? Um, you could be a manual tester. You could be an automated tester. You cannot be a good tester unless and until you know what you're testing about, which is the application. Also, the different things which surround your application. Now, when we're talking about different things which are surrounding your application, meaning your application will be dealing with a database, your application will be dealing with a web server. Probably your application would be dealing with something called a web service. So let's talk about those things today and try and take out that fear of the unknown. So I'm gonna make sure that I walk you through and try to instill some confidence about the different things which you need to know if you wanna become a good software engineer. Um, Now, again, if you are a software test engineer, what are you doing? You're testing. And what are you testing? You're testing applications. So let's talk a little bit about the different types of applications we have. Now, if you are going to be a tester, then your primary job is to test applications. Now, the applications which you would be testing basically fall under two categories. There is something called Windows application, and then there is something called web applications. Now, Windows applications, they run mostly on the Windows operating system. So let's talk a little bit about the operating systems. You have if you go back in time, there was something called Windows 95 or 98 as the operating system. Then we had Windows 2000. Then came Windows XP. Again, you have different versions. You have in Windows XP, you have something called a Home and something called a Professional version. And these can be considered as an older operating systems. And today we have Windows 7. Before that, there was something called Windows Vista. Again, in Windows 7, you have the Home Edition. You have I don't know, maybe Professional Edition. There is something called an Enterprise Edition. And we have Windows 2003, and now we have Windows 2008. To tell you a little bit about these operating systems, Windows 2003 and Windows 2008 and Windows 2000, these are server operating systems. Now, what is a server operating system? A server operating system is something which can do many things, meaning there will be a server, and on that server, this Windows 2008 would be running as the operating system. When I say it can be doing many things, say for example, you could be having many users which are connected to this. So it could be serving the needs of multiple computers. So each one of these computers could be asking this server for some information. What kind of information? Let's say there is a printer here, right? There's a printer here, and that printer is a network printer, and that network printer needs to be shared by all of these guys, this, and many more. So what the server do is the server would provide the mechanism for n number of users to share that printer. So when a request comes in from these computers to print something on this network computer, this operating system, Windows 2008, it'll take care of the queuing of who is requesting it, what are they requesting, and if there are more than one a terminal requesting something. So it basically handles all those things. So it is capable of doing multiple things. So server operating systems can handle multiple things, and these things are not necessarily just about the printing part of it. It could be other things. Let's say this server could be hosting a database on this machine, on this server. We could be having a database. So on that database, you'll have a lot of data, and many users would be asking for that data. So this server has to entertain the requests which are coming from multiple users, right? And then acknowledge the request, and then thereby respond with whatever they are requesting for. So in short, server operating system is something which is capable of handling multiple requests, is capable of doing multiple things compared to your home edition. Your home edition, I mean, you are the only person who is using that computer. Nobody else is kind of like connected to it and using the resources of it, right? So that's about the operating system. When we have our class, this is a free demo, so whatever I could do in my limited time, I would be doing that. But once we have a class, I'm going to be spending a lot of time, talking in details about the capabilities of these servers and how and what distinguishes one server from the other. For now, okay, we did discuss about the operating system. So when you as a tester, when you are testing your applications, you have to have an idea what kind of applications you are testing. So the applications could be Windows applications, or it could be web applications. So when you are testing an application, that application basically runs on a platform or an operating system, which happens to be one of these operating systems. And when you are actually testing a commercial application, it is not going to be running on a Windows 95 or 98 or a 2000. It will be running on an server operating system. So we have an idea of the operating system. Now let's talk a little bit more about what are the other things which you need to know in terms of let's say the other things which you as a tester which you need to know. We talked about the operating system. So what are the different types of operating system. You know the difference between a home edition and a server edition of it. Now let's talk about excuse me. Let's talk about the applications itself. When an application is developed, right? You have a team of programmers who are going to create that application, right? So when they build this application, they build an application using a programming language, right? So you need to know as what kind of programming language they would have used. Not that it is important for you as a tester. What do you care? You care about how the system is functioning, whether the system is working the way it is supposed to work or not. You have been hired to find out if there are any defects. So you're going to test. You're going to find out if there are any defects. You're going to report back. So that's basically what you would be doing. But it would be better if you have an idea of how the application was built. So we need to know a little bit about the architecture of your app. When you're talking about the architecture, let's say this is a home, this is a house. So you are the engineer who have been hired to test if this house is is built properly or not. All right. So what do you want to know about this house? Basically, you want to know about the architecture of the house, meaning that okay, what is the square footage of that? How many floors have been built? What kind of equipment or the material rather is used, all that kind of stuff. So that's, you're talking about the architecture now, right? So in terms of the architecture of your application, you part of the architecture is to find out what kind of platform or what kind of operating system we are using to deploy or to run that application on. So we did talk about the different operating systems. Second thing is, okay, we want to know what kind of programming language they would have used to build that. Again, not important, but just to have an idea that, okay, this application was built using, let's say, Java, right? So Java is an programming language. It's an object-oriented programming language. Likewise, there are other languages. There's something called C++. There is something called C Sharp .NET. There is something called VB .NET. There is something called Python. There is something called Perl. So basically, you have bunch of programming languages. These are mostly all of them. These are like object-oriented programming languages. So using these programming languages, one of the programming languages, they would have created this application. All right. So like programming language was important as a part of the architecture. You also need to know because I have not seen many applications in a commercial environment that would not talk to what is called a database, because most of the applications, they talk to a database. So we need to know, when we are building our application, or rather when we are testing the application, what kind of programming language they have used to test the application, what kind of operating system they have used, and what kind of databases we are dealing with. The hottest database in the industry right now, I mean, there are many, but there's something called Oracle, right? There's something called Microsoft SQL Server. But again, there are different versions in it. There's SQL Server 2000, SQL Server 2005, SQL Server 2008. You don't worry about the different versions of SQL Server. It is like, if you go to Toyota have Camrys, and Camry, there's a Camry which is built in 2000. There's a Camry which is built in 2005, 2008. So what's the difference? I mean, the point is, all those Camrys will take you from point A to point B, but probably in 2008, they have some extra feature. What is that extra feature? If you have an iPod, maybe you could connect the iPod to this Camry of 2008, and that you couldn't have done in 2000 because there was no iPod. Likewise, there will be some features in SQL Server which you will find in the latest version of it in 2008 and 2005. Those features might not be there in SQL Server 2000. Now, what are those features? If I start talking to you about the SQL Server 2005 or 2008 features, it won't make sense at this time. So, but as a part of our course, I will be going over, and I will be showing you almost everything of SQL Server. How do you create databases? How do you manage them? How do you maintain them? I mean, we'll be spending a good, possibly about like 2 to 3 hours. That's good amount of time for you to have a know-how of how it works. Plus, and there will be a lot of videos which you have to watch, which will show you almost anything and everything from a tester's point of view, which you need to know about the SQL Server databases. We'll be talking about queries. We'll be talking different types of queries are there and all that good stuff. Anyways, coming back to databases, there is Oracle, there is SQL Server, and there is something called Sybase as a database. There's something called Informix as a database. There is Access as a database. There is to as a database. So there are a bunch of databases. Databases, they are relational database management systems, so RDBMS. So we'll talk about, excuse me, what is a relational database management system, how a database is different from one database to different the other database. Let's say, for instance, if you're talking about the difference between Oracle and SQL Server, again, consider Oracle as a Honda, right? And consider SQL Server as Toyota. Now, if somebody asks you, hey, what is the difference between a Honda and a Toyota? The first thing you would say that both of them, they are cars. And likewise, Oracle and SQL Server, both of them, they are databases. What does a car do? Car takes you from point A to point B. You got to go to work. You got to go to see a friend. You got to go to a doctor. You sit in a car. You drive. You reach there. Likewise, in case of a database, what you do, you input data. You store data into a database, and then basically you output. You get the output of the data from a database. So it is nothing but, all of these databases are nothing but repositories, right? Storages. So you store data in it. Bottom line is, you need to know as how to store data inside a database. Once you store data inside a database, then you will be retrieving, searching for that data, or manipulating that data, or changing that data, updating that data. So you will be learning things like SQL queries as a part of this course. We'll be doing SQL queries. Again, without going into the details, there are something called select queries. There are insert queries, and there is something called update queries, and there is something called delete queries. Again, it might sound as if like, oh, this is so much, but trust me, a lot of people have learned this in the past, and many people would be learning in future. So you are no different. So you would be learning this, and this is no rocket science. It's not. We're not talking about going into Mars and trying to figure out things. Here it's simple stuff. Now, putting some effort, you would be able to learn all of these things. I mean, to honestly to tell you, 2 days will be more than enough for you to know these things. So not a big deal. Anyways, coming back again, we digress all the time. Coming back again, we were talking about when your development team is building an application, that application will run on an operating system. We talked about different operating systems which are out there. Now, when they build that, they will be using a programming language to build that. We talk about different programming languages like Java, C++, C#.NET, VB.NET, Python, Perl. So at least one or two languages probably would be used to build that application. And once they build the application, most of the applications will be talking to a database. So you need to know the bunch of databases. You need not know all of these databases. If you just know one or two, you're fine. So we'll be discussing probably about SQL Server databases. Those are the things. Okay. Apart from this, what do you need to know? Basically, you need to know a couple of other things. Now, this is when you build your application. Your application, let's say, can be a Windows application, or it can be a web application. Now, let me just take an example of a web application. Now, any company, let's say eBay.com, or let's say Travelocity, or let's say Bank of America. These are Bank of America, eBay. These are different websites, right? Now, so if you have been hired to do what? If you have been hired to test the functionality of eBay, right? So what do you think is happening in eBay? eBay basically is what? It's a website where people go to bid, right? They go to bid for what? For practically for anything, right? So if they are bidding, the very first thing they're gonna do is they're gonna search, right? So they will be putting in here something which they want to bid for. So let's say I want to uh, get Nike shoes, right? So I'm gonna go and search for Nike shoes. So when they build this application, right, now I want you to start thinking not like any regular user, but start thinking like a software guy, right? Meaning from you are a computer software professional, so you should start thinking about okay, when I enter this information in here, when I hit enter, how come that it goes and it brings back all that information and shows that information. That could be like a picture of that shoe. That could be like some description of that. It could be a price, and this is the image. Image. What is happening? Basically, what happens is this application. When they create the application, this application will go and it will talk to the database. So there will be a database. So between this is some programming language. Let's say there is C# .NET programming language, and this database is SQL Server database, right? And this is on a different computer. This is on a different server, and here they are using, let's say, Windows 2008 as the operating system, right? So on every machine, there must be an operating system. Operating system helps you to connect other machines to that machine. It helps you to share information like print, stuff like that. It also is responsible. It also helps in storing data if you have a database on that machine. So let's say there was a database on that machine which the guys installed, the administrators installed the database, SQL Server DBA installed the database. So this application, which the developers, which the programmers they created, they have to talk to this database. So to make them talk to the database, they will write some code, right? Now, depending on what language it is, they will be using some code. Now, this is not necessarily very important for you as a tester to know that, but just to give you an idea, they will be using something called ADO .NET, right? Because it's all .NET, so they will be using ADO .NET. And what ADO .NET is, it's a library. Library is collection, right? When you go to a books library, it's a collection of books. When ADO .NET, it's what? It's a software library. So when you're talking about software library, library means collection. Collection of what? Collection of objects. So this ADO .NET has many objects. So the programmer uses the objects, right, from ADO .NET, and there will be an object, let's say, again, not necessary, but just trying to give you some idea. There will be an object, let's say, connection. So they will use the connection object to connect to a database, right? So there will be a bunch of objects in there they will use to connect to the database. So you have to have database. There is programming language, there is database, and then there is some coding which is they are doing in some language, right? So as a part of architecture, you have to have an idea of, okay, these are the things they are using. So eBay probably had been built using, I'm just throwing something out here, that C# .NET. Probably it is built in Java. Probably it is built in some other language. So it doesn't matter. So the code is written using a programming language. The code will connect to a database. So there must be a database. Again, you know the databases. Databases are Oracle or Sybase, SQL Server, Informix, DB2, whatever, right? So there must be a database. And so the programmers have written the code to go and talk to the database and come back. So we as testers, we need not know the programming language and all that. What we need to do is we need to find out, like, if it is properly doing its task. What is the task? If a user comes in, enters some information here, it is going properly connecting to the database, coming back and then showing the information. Maybe when you enter Nike shoes and then it waits for like maybe 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 50 seconds, and maybe 1 minute, right? And nothing is coming back, right? So when something like that happens, if you wait for almost like 1 minute, nothing comes back, then there is what is called connection issues. So there is something which is not probably not working on this server. Now, what is not working? It could be many things. I did not want to go and talk a lot about the different things in there. There is also something called a server, a web server, which always needs to work, on the server. There is a component called web server. What is a web server? What is the job of a web server? Let's say um, this is your house. This is your house, right? This is your house, and you expect people to come to come to your house and knock on the door, right? So you have 15 different people, you know, that could come to your house. And then when they knock on the door, they could be knocking on the door for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And then in the beginning, it's going to be like a little knock. And then after that, they probably would like bang, 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 right? And then basically, if you do not open the door and let them in, they cannot come in. They came all the way here to the door. They're knocking on the door, but somebody have to open that door to let them in, right? Likewise, this web server. Web server is that software which sits in here inside the server. When they try to connect to the server, the web server basically listens to their request, listens to the request, and and then it allows them and says that, okay, what do you want? They're looking for a particular page, so it goes and finds that page and then comes back and then gives them the page. So that's that web server. There are different web servers out there. The most common being IIS. There is something called Apache. There is something called Tomcat. Again, I don't want to scare you with these names and all that right now, but trust me, you will be up and running in no time, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through. Right now, I'm not giving you a demo of these things, right? Like say for instance, IIS. I'm not talking to you. I'm not showing you IIS. I'm not showing you SQL Server. I mean, it's easy. SQL Server. I'll show you how to get SQL Server, how you could install SQL Server on your machine. How to get into a SQL Server. What are the different things which you could do with the SQL Server? SQL Server is a database. Likewise, I'll show you everything about the web server, Internet Information Server, IIS. Now, just for the heck, SQL Server, when you want to connect to a SQL Server, there is something called SQL Server Management Studio. You have to click on that, and then basically what it does, it goes and then it tries to connect to that database, and then it shows you what are the different databases which are available on your machine. And if it is able to connect, then it's going to come back. Okay, I have some issue here. It is saying that cannot connect to blah blah blah, right? So when things like that happen, I'm also going to show you as how to fix that, right? Now, because I was looking at a different instance of that, so that's why it gave me that error. So we will be doing all of these things. So by the time you're going to be done with this course, you will be having so much of knowledge, so much of information, and you will be putting that information to work right on day one when you go to the job. I mean, you're not handicap anymore. You're not surprised that, okay, I cannot do this. I don't know, what is a database? I don't know what is a web server. That's what we're going to be teaching you in this course. We're going to be mastering you all of these skills. Now, just to give you a little idea, this is basically what it is, right? So that's a database. I got connected to a database. If I take you into this database, there's something called states. Right click on that, say select top 1000 rows, and then basically it's going to show you the query. This is the query, and these are the states in that table. There is a New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina. Can you add more? Absolutely, you could add more. And here it says, give me select top 1000 state ID code description. Okay, I'm not going to scare you with that. This is what is called a query. right? This is the query. So we will learn as how to write the queries, right? There are different types of queries and all that. Anyways, so I'm going to get out of here. So that was just to show you that we'll be looking into database. And likewise, there's something called a web server. So when you connect to something, when you are testing an application, and if you find that you waited for like a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes and nothing has shown up, then you should be at least be able to not fail the test. I mean, of course, I mean, everything could be working fine, but then you're not able to connect. So you should be able to go back and then talk to them and tell them that, hey, look, this is what is happening. So now you have to look a little intelligent and you have to look, smart. So you would say that I think it's a web server issue. Right? Why? Because web server again is somebody who is going to listen to the request. So the request was Nike shoes should be gone, and it has to search in the database and come back with this data. But then when it was trying to send Nike shoes to the database, on the door it was knocking, and this guy, this IIS, probably was sleeping. I mean, not literally sleeping, meaning that that service probably was shut down. So you got to know as how to find out those services, how to make sure that we look for those services. Again, anything you do for the first time, it is going to be like little overwhelming. I think you remember the fact that when you were trying to learn to swim, trying to learn to drive, everything was like a chore. Everything was like a challenge. But today you take things for granted. Likewise, basically, whatever you need to do, like, I need to go into this administrative service, and in the administrative services, I need to go in here and I need to look into these things. Now, if you see here, it is showing you that, okay, these are the different things which you could look for. If SQL Server is not working, you're going to come in here, and then you will see this SQL Server, is this started? If it is not started, it is not working. Now, guess what? We had that issue, right? It was SQL Server, I was trying to connect to that, and then it did not work. Because if you see here, it is not started, so that's why it was not connecting. So these are the little things which you need to know. Now, how did I do it? Probably I did it very fast. So, but again, this is not a class. I'm just trying to get you to know that what we could be doing in this course. So bottom line here is we were talking about the architecture. So you have to sound good. You have to look good. So you have to know these surrounding things. So what I just did with you today is basically I talked to you about here is the application the developers would be creating. That application will run on some operating system. That application will have some programming language they would be using. That application will be talking to a database. That application, now, let's say depending on if it is a web application, then if it is web application, then it needs to be hosted. It needs to be hosted. So meaning it needs to be deployed on a server. So when we talk about hosting, we have to talk about web server softwares. So the different types of web servers is IaaS. So we need to know, again, in IaaS, there are different versions. There is 7, there is 6, there is 8. Again, we need to talk about this. So when we talk about the version numbers, remember my example where I told you that it's an older Camry versus a newer Camry. You have more features. Now, if I talk to you right now about the authentication feature in an IaaS, it won't make sense right now, right? So when it comes to that, I'm going to be showing you IaaS. I'm going to be walking you through IaaS, like I briefly gave you a demo of the SQL Server login. I'm going to be doing that with IaaS as well. So bottom line here is you have to know the surroundings, right? You have to know the surroundings, not just the application you're going to check. So you have to know the architecture of your application. You have to know the architecture. So that's what we'll be doing. In fact, I'll be showing you the different tools people they use. Now, am I trying to make you a master of these tools? Heck not. That's not my goal. My goal is not to make you a master of these tools. Am I making you a developer here? Am I making you a database administrator? Am I making you a Windows administrator? No. But then you have to have an idea of these things. So we will be covering that as a part of that course. Our main task is we have to be a good tester, right? And we can only be a good tester if we know the surroundings. If you want to play a game, if you want to play cricket, if you want to play basketball, if you want to play whatever the game is it not better if you know a little bit about the rules and the regulations, the surroundings? I mean, if I'm playing table tennis, I mean, 20 points, 21 points, the game is over, right? I mean, there is a service after like 5 points, the service changes. Likewise in tennis. Now, those are the rules. I mean, I just cannot be like serving all the time. I cannot be like, so that's why you just cannot be a tester without knowing the other things. So you have to know the other things, and that's where I'm coming from as far as this demo is concerned. Now, we could just stop here because I have limited time with this presentation. So I will continue to do more in-depth presentation with each of these tools we're talking about. So I'm going to take a database and I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to take a web server and I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to even show you as how to write a simple program in, let's say, C#.net or in Java or in VB.net. So that way you will know that, oh, this is how you write. You might not becoming a programmer, but at least you will see that we don't write this way, we write that way, right? And it is not going to be something like I don't even know what that was, that, or it is not going to be I mean, you need to see at least once, you need to see what it is, right? So that's basically what I would be doing. That will give you some confidence, and then you will overcome what is called the fear of the unknown. So this was all about making you a little aware of it. Thank you for watching, and then we hope you would come back again and then see a video on some other topic sometime soon. Thank you for your time, and you take care now.